Hey, everybody, welcome to RiverCity-Media's Beyond the Booth. I'm the Howard Channing along with Phil Harris. And yes, we are back again. If you saw us on the last hour, we had Coach Joe Guthrie of Northeast on. And now tonight, right now, we got Coach Brent Tinker and son Carter Tinker of Fort Payne. Guys, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having us. Phil contacted us a few weeks ago, and we've been excited to be a part of this. So thank you.
We got y'all on because one of the Tinkers is fixing to head toward Florence, and we'll let y'all guess which one it is. No, it's Carter. Carter's fixing to head to Florence and play for the UNA Lions. And Carter, tell us a little bit about that. How do you get involved with UNA and everything?
Well, they were really the first school to start talking to me a lot and start looking at me, and I've just loved being over there every time I've been to a camp or on a visit or anything. And that's just where I really want to go.
So I'm trying to think back. Football's been a while, but if I'm mistaken, you played linebacker, but you're going for a tight end position.
Yes, sir. Tight end, H-back position. Yes, sir. That's what they want me for.
What if they came up to you and said, Carter, I know we talked to you about tight end, H-back, and all that, but we really love to put you on the other side of the ball where you could hit someone. How would you feel about that?
I mean, I love that. I've always loved defense, and I love anything with football really. But I mean, I love defense. I've always loved playing defense.
They've actually that's a possibility because they've recruited him the whole time as linebacker. But then when it came down to it, the kid from West Morgan signed, and very similar to Carter, and they kind of needed one at each position. So after they evaluated, of course, we started using Carter more this past year on the offensive side at Fort Payne, and had plans of doing that all along, but it happened more this year toward the second half of the season, and he was productive. So after they compared, they just felt like that was a need for them, and so it could change over time, but as of now, they're wanting to bring him in as an H-back.
Well, Coach, I was going to ask you, you've been a standout running back in the day. We're not going to give no dates because it'll show everybody's age here. So, there's somebody here that is way older than all of us, and we won't talk about Phil, but you being a standout running back and everything, and your son being on the defensive side, how does that make you feel?
Well, actually, of course, everybody knows that Ider, you play both ways. So the only time I got to come off the field was actually on kickoff to change my shoe, or after PAT. Sometimes when I had some others that would kick, then I might get a breather. But everybody recruited me as a linebacker also. So it was the same, very similar situation. I went to UTC, signed as a linebacker, and then got up there, and they needed a fullback. So I transitioned. But then my senior year at UTC, I went back and played middle linebacker my last year. So I played both sides, but I was the same way as him. I just wanted to play football, just enjoyed the game, and it didn't matter which side. So just was very blessed to have that experience, and I even get to play both at the college level.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not going to lie about it. I remember you going to UTC, but I did not remember you playing linebacker because you just running in circles around everybody down here in DeKalb County. So I just assumed that you was being recruited as a running back. So let me ask both of y'all this. If you had your preference or your dream scenario, which side of the ball would you rather play, Coach?
I thought at the next level, my best opportunity was that defensive side, but it was a situation where they didn't have any depth. So I played fullback, wound up starting the last 3 games freshman year, and then continued to do that. But it was situational that moved me because they went to Air Raid 2000. If you put air raid in, that don't use a fullback. So they eliminated my offensive position that I had played, but then made a transition, and it was good. So I thought defense was probably better fitting for me.
Yeah.
Ideal scenario. Now, if you had your wishes, which way would you? Don't
Well,
give, don't give
as a
the PC.
player,
Don't
yes,
give the PC answer, Coach. Come on now. It's just me, you, and Phil sitting here talking,
right,
and so
yeah. Well, in high school now, I wanted the football to ever play. So, I mean, that was my mentality. Give me the football. I think I can do something with it. So, but again, that was not the situation, when I played in college. It was more of a blocking back. So, anyways, either or, just let's play.
Coach ain't going to give me an answer, Carter. So you give me, if you had your ideal situation, offense or defense, which would you rather do?
I'd say defense just because I feel like it's more exciting and, getting that third down or fourth down stop. I mean, every possession, on offense, every possession, I wasn't touching the ball like every time, I was more of a blocking guy, like he said, but I think I'd say defense.
Before I go to Phil, we got a comment. Somebody that, Coach, you may know. I'm not sure if you know him or not. Tyler Dalton. Hey, Coach and Carter, Ider Insider checking in.
TD's always there. He don't miss. I actually seen Tyler Saturday at a funeral, so caught up with him. Been a while, but he was one of my players at Ider. Was on that the most successful team at Ider when we made that third round run, and so me and TD go way back.
Yeah, I got a feeling that if you're from Ider and you don't know TD, then you just moved there.
Yeah, you're from nowhere outside. You're from nowhere near Ider if you don't know him.
Right.
Go ahead, Phil.
Well, Coach, I want to go back and talk about your playing days. And, of course, I was covering football, doing games play-by-play. And I remember back when I did an interview one time, Jason Bowen interviewed me, and he asked me what was, the single best performance I ever saw by a high school player. And I didn't hesitate. It's tonight, and I'm sure you're going to remember this, that y'all beat Plainview up at Plainview when they tied the game late, and you kind of sort of took over in that fourth quarter, and it seemed like you willed that team to victory. I have never seen a player that was so relentless that night. I guess you do remember that because that was a big win for Ider football.
That was a fun night. It was, I would relate that game to my Carter's team last year beating Gaston City for the first time because we had not beat Plainview in 13 years. Had played them in some close games, but it had been 13 years since we had beat them. Of course, they were a big classification, but if you know anything about Coach Wells, he played everybody in the county. He did not vary from that. He was going to play everybody in the DeKalb County, and he was going to play the few Jackson County teams that were close, and that was our schedule. And so he didn't care, what classification or how good they were going to be or what they were doing. That's who we played. So, yes, that was a special night for us and our team. And as similar to their team last year, we didn't get off to the start that we thought. We went to Crossville and got beat in 24-23 that night. I did not have a good game, had several turnovers, and so we did not get the start that was expected. There was a lot of expectation going into that season for us, just as this past season for him. So a lot of similarities there. But their third win, when you think about it, us going to Southside this past season, that was a must win for us. And I don't know that year was a must win, but it sure did propel us, our season, my senior year, beating Plainview, just as this year when they beat Southside week 3. And so, yes, one of the bigger games, the one that most people, brings up when they talk about my high school career because of that last series, being able to overcome the momentum that Plainview had taken at their place. And so anyways, had a couple of runs on that drive that, was able to break some tackles and was in the late in the fourth quarter. And, I always took pride in trying to be my be stronger in the second half, than the other team. I knew that teams were going to be very good in the first half, but I wanted to dominate in the second half. And so, that was, again, a big win for us and our program at that time and really set us up for a big season.
Yeah, you talk about Coach Wales. I'm sure a lot of your coaching style come from him. Hard-nosed. That's the way he was. That's the way you were. And that's the way you coached.
Yes. I tell people, thinking back, he instilled a lot in us as young men and the guys that I played with, still talk about the lessons, the life lessons. Just a couple of weeks ago, I had some conversations about things that they'd learned from Coach Wales, but I just always sum it up. Playing for Coach Wales is just toughness. He just always, inspired you to try to be the toughest person on the field, to try to, overcome any adversity just through your sheer will of mental toughness and physical toughness, and just instilled the work ethic, that carries over into everything. So I was very blessed to play for Coach Wales. Very thankful.
Well, I know when you talk about you've got all these coaches, you talk about the best coaches and who the best coach is, and you have all that. I think Coach Wales is one of those coaches that may be the most underrated coach, to me. And hearing what he did during his time, hearing people talk about this type of coach he was, he's up there. He's just not mentioned because he didn't have these 8 or 10 state championships, but he was an outstanding coach, an outstanding man.
Yes. He did what high school coaches are supposed to do. He had a positive impact on young men, and he taught them life lessons that, they carry throughout their life. So that's what it was about. It was about challenging them. It was about, teaching them how to become a young man and how to be tough, like I talked about earlier. And so he did an excellent job at challenging young men and inspiring young men.
Yeah, definitely so. Well, Coach, I want to talk to you about this. I know you don't like to talk a whole lot about yourself, but you was inducted to the DeKalb County Sports Hall of Fame in 2020. I know you rushed for, I think it was 4,600 yards, more or less, during your high school career. Of course, you were All-State. Then you went to UTC and played 4 years there. Basically got on the field real early, had a great career there. What did that mean to you to be inducted into the DeKalb County Sports Hall of Fame? Because when you look around, that's your peers that reach out and honor you. And when you look around and see the people that have gone into the Hall of Fame, that's a special thing.
It really is. And I stop and think about it sometimes. It was special to be recognized. But it goes back to, as I always say, that football is the ultimate team sport. So you have to be in the right situation. You have to have good players around you. You have to have good coaches and put you in the right situations. To do that, a lot of times you have to have success, and success in football doesn't come from one player. But I was very fortunate, that I had. Even in high school, I got to play early. So, as a eighth grader, dressed for the varsity and played a little bit of special teams and mop-up time. But then as a ninth grader, was able to start, both sides of the ball. So I think that, a lot had to happen to have a career and to have the stats and the success. A lot of that stuff has to line up for you to get opportunities that maybe some others don't. But, I was just blessed with good teammates, a lot of opportunities, and put in situations to be successful. Coach Wells, he done a great job of that also, of putting us in good situations, to have success. And so I understand that as a coach now, because when I came in as a young coach, I look back and didn't put my teams in great situations sometimes, learning. And so I realized how important that was for them to be well prepared and give us opportunities. And so, the meaning of being recognized, I'm very thankful. And yes, you look at the people that's been honored by being put in the Hall of Fame. Very thankful for that. But just a lot of good memories, and thankful for those memories.
Yeah. Well, definitely. So I understand that. Of course, you spent 15 years, I think it was, as a head coach at Ider. And you and I talked about this. You came to Fort Payne because it was a good opportunity for your family, but a part of you is still in Ider.
It is. And, everybody asked, well, how is it? Or even to today, I say, well, how's Fort Payne for you? And it's been a blessing for us. It's been good for Carter. It's been good for my daughter and us as a family. I mean, I've enjoyed the people and the position, but I miss the people at Ider, and I still watch and see each week how they're doing and try to support them any way I can. And Coach Clemens had called me last week, and so I'm going to try to get with him, and he's looking for some of the sprinkler system that we put in years ago, and they hadn't used on the practice field. So I'm always glad to get a call, when I can help or something that I can do, to benefit them. So it's home and will always be home. But Fort Payne has been a blessing to us.
Yeah, definitely. I understand. Well, I want to ask you a little bit about family before I go to Carter. Your wife, Shannon, a big part of the success of the family naturally. And you mentioned her, Kirby. She qualified as a team in the javelin throw, and I think she's just in the 8th grade. And of course, Cooper Garrett won the state. I was wondering, with Kirby, her being in the 8th grade and learning to throw the javelin, was it helpful to be with Cooper? Has she learned a lot? Because that's special to get to the state in track. Because Fort Payne's been very successful in track in North Alabama.
Yes. So actually, this was Kirby's second year. She qualified as a 7th grader last year. Carter qualified as an 8th grader in 9th and 10th.
Not 10th.
Yeah. Okay, so he qualified a few years as javelin. So when we came down here, Coach Samford, he does a great job of recruiting. We just kind of met them, and this was during COVID, and he brought a javelin by for Carter to throw and said, I think you can be good at this. And so anyways, got us kind of in that. We had no idea about the track world. That was completely new to us. And but Carter had success early until he actually tore his UCL. And that he had surgery in December, played this year. He tore it in the spring, played this year with the football season with a torn UCL, but then had the surgery back in December. So he'll be released from that this month. So that's kind of where got Kirby headed toward that direction of throwing. But yes, anytime you can watch someone who is at the level of Cooper and go out there and practice with her, and just phenomenal. So we were down there to see that. Of course, I don't know if you know, but that's Carter's girlfriend. They've been dating for nearly 3 years. So we know a lot about Cooper Garrett. So, but it was just amazing. That was a fun time when she had been chasing that 150 foot mark all year. Had won the 6A this year with her first throw. She threw 145, which was a new PR for her. And her last throw, her 6th throw of the day, is when she just turned loose and threw that 150. And so it was fun to be a part of that. And then to see her win the disc also. But she's going to do a phenomenal job. She's going to UAH, and she's going to do volleyball and track over there. And so, Carter's just going to be about an hour away from her at UNA playing football. So anyways, they've had a strong relationship, and so she's been a blessing to watch.
Yeah, well, that's good. That sounds good. That'll keep you from getting homesick, Carter. That's for sure. To have a little visitor every once in a while. Well, tell us about your wife, Shannon. I mean, often the wife is the glue that holds everything together.
Yes, she is very organized and keeps all of us straight here at the house with chores and that kind of stuff. Makes us a list and but she does so much of it, and especially the people that's never been in the coaching world don't understand the demand, especially in season. And you talk to any coach during in season, it's nonstop, and then the time that you are home, you're so exhausted sometimes and mentally drained and your mind is still, on film or game prep or practice or, whatever, mistakes from the past week. So it's a challenge. And I think that she's, she has done an amazing job, during that time to keep everything going, keep us straight, and keep us organized and on schedule.
Yeah, that sounds good. Well, I want to jump over to you, Carter. This guy beside you, he's, not only is he dad, he's also a football coach. Does he have higher expectations for you than he does everybody else?
I think so. Just because he sees me every day and he's been with me or throughout my whole career, and he believes that and what I can do,
Yeah. David, so is there times maybe he singles you out in practice when he's trying to get a message across to maybe the whole football team?
He will say my name sometimes. he'll call me out on some stuff that I've messed up. So yes, he just a little bit.
Hoping to get everybody back. I played for Jim Kirby, and every once in a while he would call out John just because he was trying to get the message out to everybody, and it usually worked most of the time.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Well, Carter, I want to ask you about this. The season didn't start great for you guys. Things weren't going good at Southside. I mean, in the fourth quarter, y'all were down. I remember we was keeping up with it on scoreboard, and we were just kind of shaking our head. Dadgummit, they just can't find, they just can't get it going because we knew y'all were better than that 0-2 record. But things kind of come into place against Southside. Did that kind of sort of pull this team together by pulling out that win? Because that was huge.
Yeah, I think it did because we finally realized that we can win, and we can put everything together. Those first two games, we had a few guys out and we're moving some guys around in different positions, and trying to still get stuff figured out. But I mean, we all knew that we were better than that because we'd seen us over the summer, and we all had high hopes. And I think that win was a big part of what happened the rest of the season.
Definitely so. Of course, back in 2023, I remember y'all had a hard time stopping Scottsboro, in the first game of the year. But after that game, at halftime, as a matter of fact, y'all made some adjustments. And defensively, this team got better throughout the 2023 season, and it carried over into 2024.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Defense was a big part of this year, I feel like. But, I mean, we had guys making plays all over the field, offense and defense. So.
Yeah, and what you was talking about, I think y'all had some injuries in the backfield. Didn't that force you to play a little more in the backfield than you normally would?
Yes, sir. I came in the fourth quarter of the Scottsboro game, and then the next two games I ended up starting at running back. And then once we got a few guys back after the Southside game, and that allowed them to kind of take over. So.
Well, I know it was a great season last year. And, of course, some people's going, I think Fort Payne was voted state champions in 1965. But this team was the best team on field as far as playoffs in the semifinals. This will go down as probably the best team in school history. It was exciting to be a part of that.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Just the way that the community are surrounded around us and all the stuff they did for us. I mean, it was such a fun season, just to be able to be on that team and be a part of that and be one of those guys, So.
Well, tell me this. I know probably the biggest win of the year, not counting playoffs, was that Gaston City game. That's one of those where y'all had come close to them several times. And we knew at some point you guys were going to get over that hump and find a way to beat them. Did that really shoot your confidence level to a high level after beating them?
Oh, yeah. After that game, we knew that what we could do and like we could actually play with those teams in the playoffs. And I feel like that helped us a lot throughout the rest of the season.
Well, Coach, did you feel that way too? Did you feel, of course, the big one was getting that Southside win. That was huge. Falling to 0-3 right there would have been very tough to overcome. But that Gaston City win had to have brought this team to a different level. And I'm sure as coaches, you had to have seen that.
It did, and the confidence kept building, once we got that Southside win, because I mean, it was we were reeling. And on the sidelines, it was not going well. We'd had, mistakes. Like I said, Carter was playing both ways. He played over 120 snaps that night, and a lot of county schools don't think much about it, but when at Fort Payne, that's pretty unusual, and especially to play middle linebacker and running back. And so, we had to hit a 56 and a 57-yard field goal that night, Connor Hughes, to win that game. And Carter scored the touchdown and the 2-point conversion on the series. It was actually a block punt that kind of turned the momentum late in the game. And from that block punt, we as coaches, we talked about it that night and said, we're going to look back, and that block punt is going to be the play that turned our season around. And it was. And so we built confidence. But when you get to a team like Gaston City that you've never beat, but really we dominated that game from start to finish. We dominated it physically. On the scoreboard, we got a little conservative at the end, and they scored to make it look like it was a close game, but it was not. And so, in hindsight, there was a couple of guys that was hurt in that game, and they played Southside the next week, in which Southside, I think that they were, we had beat them up, and then Southside got them and took care of business. So really, it was amazing to look back and see that game 3 was the region championship. Nobody would ever have said that. When we go to Southside and we squeak that one out and hit the field goal to win it, nobody would have dreamed that was for the region championship, because you just see that Gaston City still, both teams had to play them. So anyways, that's what high school football is. It's a long season. It's about momentum. It's about, keeping your guys on the field. And as y'all spoke about, when you've got Carter having to start at running back and middle linebacker, and we don't have either one of our starting top 2 running backs in, and then Brandon Oliver was banged up and played very few plays against Scottsboro. It just wasn't ideal, but the mental toughness, I made the statement a few weeks ago as just, it still eats me up knowing that we could have been 10-0 regular season, 12-0 first time ever. And because there was a 10-0 team, I know, at Fort Payne, I think in 2011 or whatever. So, that still bothers me. But then one of the other coaches made a statement that really made me think. He said it would not have meant as much. And I can see that, because it took, these guys learned so much about life that because they came in, they felt the pressure of knowing the high expectations. They knew everybody, had them up on a pedestal, was ranked in the state, and there was just a lot there. And man, when you lose those first 2 and you're looking in the mirror, you either find a way or you throw your hands up. And that night, even through the first 3 quarters at Southside, the easiest thing to do would have been to just throw your hands up and make excuses. But these guys found a way. And so it was special to be a part of. And then to reel off, 8 in a row, go in the playoffs, win 2 home playoff games, and then give ourselves a chance at Oxford, it would have been hard to top that season.
Yeah, definitely. So, and I know exactly, kind of maybe how you guys felt. My senior year, we had high expectations. We lost a 5-second game in a game we thought we should have won, had opportunities, but they got us in the fourth quarter. But that game stuck in our craw the rest of the year, and it was a motivating factor because we didn't want to feel that again. So really, maybe that adversity maybe helped this team come together, especially when you won one that you thought you was about to lose.
Right. It was. It just was a testament to their work that they'd put in because, people says, hey, we had a great group of seniors. People knows that on the field they produced, but nobody was there to see all the extra time that these kids put in. Coach mentioned it the other day, about Connor Hughes, who kicked every day. And so he was prepared when he got that opportunity for those game-winning field goals. And he went and done what he does. And, Carter had and some others knew they was going to play both ways. So they would do extra conditioning after practice. And just the reps of people would not believe how much Dax Varnador works on his game of getting throws in, of the mental of film study, and all these guys. So we had, we laugh and cut up, but even my defensive end, Lucas Talent, he would he would know the other players' names. He had talked to them, the opponents. I mean, he would do scouting reports. He would be coming in telling coaches about the different kids. So it was just a very unique group that was all in, and they wanted it, and they just went and got what they wanted.
Yeah, because I'm going to throw this one out there. It was the biggest moment of the year, Carter, was, let's see, at one time you got WQSB Athlete of the Week. Of course, y'all got Team of the Week for beating Gadsden City, and I think you got Player of the Week for that week. Was that the biggest moment in your career, was being shined over by a WQSB?
Yeah. Yes, sir. I think so. I mean, that was just a huge win. Probably the biggest win in my career. Just beating the team for the first time in school history. That's always special. And that was just a great week.
Hey, you already heard us at QSB. We got more phone calls, more text messages, and it was on and on and on. We were just, playing dumb, of course. It was a lot of fun trying to keep that sick. Come on, you got to tell us. We can't tell you. We can't tell you. There may be something else that comes along. Yeah. Of course, that one was pretty, and that was huge. We sure was glad for you guys because you finally broke the ice against them. Nothing against Gadsden City, but Fort Payne just hadn't been able to pull that one out. Well, Carter, I want to ask you about this. You became the all-time leading tackler at Fort Payne. I think it was in the Pelham game, maybe the last regular season of the year, last regular season game of the year. That's a huge honor. There's been some great players. I can remember Brian Jackson was an outstanding linebacker. Fort Payne's had some great linebackers over the years. You're with a great group. What did that mean to you? What did that mean to you to get that record of being the all-time leading tackler at Fort Payne?
It was very special to me. I knew what I needed to do before the season started. And how many tackles I needed to get. So, that was huge. I haven't been at Fort Payne, but just probably how long has it been?
Seventh grade.
Seventh grade. So I didn't know much about like the history and stuff, but it's still very special to hold that record now.
Of course, and you talked about this, Coach. There's a special group that's come out of here. I know, Brandon Oliver and Dax Bernador and Connor Hughes and Carter Tinker. These four guys, and I'm sure there's probably more, are going to go down in history with some big names, your Matt Hammonds and your Marcus Carters and your Curtis McDaniels. There's a lot of great players that come to Fort Payne. These four and maybe more are going to go down in history, as being the top players. That's a great honor.
It is. And it comes along with, being a part of a good team, of getting a lot of opportunities. Carter and these other guys were very fortunate, to avoid, injuries that could have, that cost you some games, that you don't get to, pile up those stats. He got to play early, as a ninth grader, went in the playoff game and played middle linebacker. And so, I think he had 10 tackles that night. And then it was a deal to where, thought the whole time was going to play tight end, fall in after Sawyer Burt graduated. We thought he'd be the tight end, but we just didn't have linebackers. So, it's just things happen and people change positions. And, of course, sometimes you got to do at the high school level, even at Fort Payne, sometimes you just got to do what's best for the team and move positions. And we've got guys like that. So, just like, the Hall of Fame, or when I broke the record for the yardage, or him breaking records for tackles, that's a record. I mean, it's a blessing. But you remember the team, you remember those other guys and how everybody committed. You remember what it was to be a part of something bigger than you, and that's what football does. We always say it's the toughest sport there is, because it's so it demands, so physically demanding, so mentally demanding, and it takes so many people of doing their job. He knows if the D-line didn't eat up blocks up front, he's not going to make those tackles, and he was just in a position that it was designed for him to make the tackle. So, very thankful and proud of him, for being prepared to do that job, and for just being persistent, in playing the game the right way, and preparing and being ready for the moment. But it's so much more. It's such a team. It takes everybody. So, he understands that, and that's a blessing. But for him to come down here to Fort Payne, people's asked me before, hey, which one, what do you think? Your career, Carter's career, which one was more successful? And I just automatically say, for him to play at this level, to come and do what he's done, at Fort Payne at the 6A level, that's a great accomplishment, and so proud for him to get those opportunities.
Well, yeah, and he stepped in at linebacker, and he became the anchor of that defense. That's for sure. I mean, good and well, other teams had to plan to figure out where he was going to be in that middle.
Yeah. I remember there was one Wednesday night, I go to church in Gadsden, so there was some of their players were there, and said that he was playing me on their scout team, so that they were preparing for me that whole week, and there's our whole defense. I mean, you can't prepare for everybody on the defense all the time, so we had playmakers all over the field that helped a lot, so if you're worried about somebody, I mean, there's going to be another guy coming from the other side, in a different spot that you have to worry about too. So
I think I would say people don't understand, like records, like you're saying, for him to have, over 400 tackles, because you can go, if you play long enough, like he did, from, a starter from the 10th grade to the 12th grade, after you've had success, they start scheming to double team. They know they've got to take care of you. And so it gets harder. So he actually had, a few more tackles his junior year than he did his senior year. But that's just, that's just the way it works, because when people game plan against you, and you are, the leading tackler, or you've had success against them year before, they're going to come in and try to counter that and make somebody else beat them, So it does say a lot just about, the resiliency, and anytime records are broken, the persistence and longevity of someone being able to do that. So that's a great testament to his work ethic and what he's able to accomplish.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying too, Coach, is if there's a lot of attention on him and he's getting blocked at times, it opens it up for other guys to make plays. And that's where your defense, becomes better, because that's what I thought was the biggest improvement of this football team. Yeah, you had the weapons on offense. Y'all score points, but you had to stop people. And if you were going to win in the playoffs, you had to stop people. I mean, you're not going to shut down people anymore, right, but you got to get off the field on third down.
Right. And we were able to do that. Everybody knows, that offense sells tickets and defenses win championships. So, And it came down to that at Oxford, and that's that was the hardest thing to walk away, because we felt like we could stop Oxford's run going into the game, and we did until the fourth quarter, and we could not get the stop to get our offense the ball back. So, it held true. I mean, if we could have got that stop on that last series and got our offense the ball back, we felt good about getting in field goal range and getting an opportunity to win that game. So it is. Of course, it takes both sides, and we were very talented both sides, and so just a great all-around football team.
Yeah, I talked to their play-by-play guy, and he asked me what I thought the keys to the game were. I said, well, I'm going to tell you this. I said, I don't think Oxford's going to drive up and down the field. They're not going to have an 80-yard drive. I don't think they're built for that. I said, but now can Fort Payne stop the big plays? That's going to be the problem. I said, but I know Fort Payne's going to be able to move the football on Oxford and may control it. He said, but I'm afraid of the big plays for Oxford might be the difference. And that turned out to pretty much the way it was.
It held true. Yes, we gave up those four big touchdown passes too. Mm-hmm. So it was very, very foretelling from you.
Yeah. Well, Carter, I want to ask you this. As far as a player, are you more of a leader by vocal, or are you a leader by example?
I would say example. I mean, vocally, I will say some stuff on the field, but like overall, I feel like, Dax, Vardor, and some of the other guys on defense are more vocal than I am, but I try my best to lead by example and just do all the right things,
Well, I want to ask you both you guys this. I mean, y'all can, chime in both ways. Talk about some of the guys on this team that were very important. Name all you can remember or all you can, because if they're listening, they like to hear their names. It was a successful season, and everybody had their part and everybody had their role. So, mention all you can.
Go ahead. You talk first, and I'll try to pick up the one you missed.
So I say Lucas Talent, he was a guy always picking people up, when they messed up. And you had Luke Patton, which are safety, he was kind of the quarterback of the defense, getting us all lined up and stuff. And then you had Connor Kinsley and Cooper Jackson at corner, that they always made some big plays, and when we needed them, on some big stops in our passing game. And then you had Levi Crow and Riker Engel always making those huge hits, when we needed them. And I mean, that would always kind of shut down their offense when they saw them coming, making big plays. And I mean, our whole D-line, Tremaine Smith, Parker Wilson, Mason Chandler, they always kept off our O-line off of us, and I mean, just played a huge part in that.
We were, people would kind of laugh when they'd see us warming up because we were so undersized up front with Parker Wilson and Lucas Talent. When you're in 6A, you put 280-pound guys up front, and one of them's a nose and one of them's a DN. It just you look outmatched. But those guys were relentless, like you said, along with Tremaine and Isaiah Morgan came in. He'd switched from offense to defense. He made a lot of big plays for us. Played some interior D-line. Mason Chandler, who is being recruited, he is just a phenomenal player who, got length and strength and speed and made so many big plays. I mean, he can control the strong side at the defensive end, the strong defensive end. Like he said, we just had physical guys that with Riker and Luke, coming down from safety, making plays at the line of scrimmage, and the other linebackers. I know JP Buffington rotated in and played a big role at times for linebacker, and then wound up like Carter filling in on offense some. So I think the offensive side, early was figuring out the O-line. We had so many changes and we're so many new guys and trying to fit them in. And so that played out. As that played out, we got better because we were not able to move the ball at Scottsboro and had a little better offensive production, against Gunnersville early, but then still had some times where we, couldn't get first downs or couldn't protect Dax to give him time to throw. And so as we started to be able to give him time, everybody knows how good Dax is when he has time to get rid of the football, you've got a chance. So it was just fun to see the team develop and see the receivers, grow and develop. I'm at Riker, Shankles and Griggs. Griggs he wound up having shoulder surgery, but when we had our full receiving core, very dynamic. And I know that, it was Fisher, Abbott, and Brandon Oliver on the edges that made a lot of plays for us and consistent, and then also Kyle Caminetti. So them, and then in the backfield, once we got Carter Blaylock and Caden Adams back, full strength, and we had our running backs, we had, our receiving core, and then started mixing in Carter at tight end some to give us big plays. It was really fun to be a part of. And then special teams, when you've got two kickers, when you got a punter and like Hayden Chambers and a place kicker like Connor Hughes, I mean, it's just it's a game changer.
Of course, also, Coach, you can look back too. This is one of those where, you mashed all the right buttons. Everything just kind of fell into place. Call it luck, call it what you want to, but sometimes things just come together.
Yes, we never called it luck because, like I said, we seen the guys put the work in. We seen them, and we expected that out the gate. And when it didn't happen, everybody kind of got big-eyed, and you start getting a few questions, and the guys, they're not as confident, taking the field. But we had from the bye week being the perfect time of us regrouping, before that we went to before Southside, right? Mm-hmm. And having that bye week, being able to regroup, come together, we challenge our guys to be more physical, and so once we done that, everything started to change, and we got that first win, and then it was the rest of it was history. So yes, just I don't know, to be a part of something like that and to watch it all come together. That's what you dream of as coaches, because you do it for a long time, and you've seen it start out really good, and maybe fall apart toward the end. Other teams getting better, and maybe you're not peaking at the right time, but we did this year, and so it's so much more fun to start slow and finish fast. You want to do both. You want to start fast and finish strong, but we started slow, but we did finish strong. So
yeah, definitely. So, well, Carter, I want to ask you about this. The community, fans, school, everybody got behind this team. It became an event on Friday night for Fort Payne football. I mean, y'all had to go through town and had a walk through. I mean, the community really got behind this team, and that had to make it even more special in that you brought a community together.
Yes, it was very special just to see how many people would show up to support us, and all the stuff that they did for us on Fridays, like the game day events that they did at the school before the Homewood game, and the walk that we did before the Oxford game, and they held pep rallies for us and just did everything that they could to support us and make us feel special and believe, or like let us know that they believed in us, So,
well, one tradition Fort Payne does, and we talk about this on radio, is when you're in road games, you make that special trip through town. When you're winning, that's especially big because everybody shows up. That has to be a lot of fun for y'all.
Yes, I think what game was that? Probably the Pelham game, that last away game that we had in the regular season. That's probably the most people I've ever seen out there or on a Friday night. So.
Yeah. That's definitely so. I asked what Coach Elmore called after y'all beat. I can't. It was I don't know if one of the. Oh, it's the Gadsden City game. I asked him. I said, well, why don't you just load the kids up on the bus and ride them through town after that Gadsden City win? He goes, everybody's done left it, but that would have been a good idea. So that was a special win, I'm sure. But I want to ask you one more thing, Carter, and I'll turn it over to Howie. You decided to go to UNA, and I know they were your first, the first one that kind of sort of looked at, wanted you. When you went and visited, what sold you on UNA? I've been over there. When I was in high school, I went and visited. That was 40 years ago. But it was a neat place. I love the campus. What made you decide this is where I want to be?
Yeah, I really think it was just the area that it's in and the community that surrounds it. It's really like Fort Payne to me. That had that little like downtown area, but it's also kind of big and also the coaches. I love Coach Dearman and the way he coaches and how he teaches and just how much of a family it is over there with his team. And also Coach Caraboa, he's always talked to me. He's the one that started recruiting me a few years ago, and we've always kept in touch, and I just love the family and community over there.
Of course, you've got a report May 29th. You're going as a preferred walk-on, but I'm sure the goal is to get on scholarship just as quick as you can. And, y'all had talked about this. It's, starting out at tight end because that's the best option, get on the field. But like y'all talked about, there's some flexibility there. There may be some changes. Same with you, Coach, when you was in college. But, the biggest thing is get in there, get on that travel squad and see what happens.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's the goal, is to just go in there and show them what I can do and get as high up on the charts as I can.
Okay, I want to ask you one more thing. Did you have a memorable moment during the regular season when, just one game that really stood out for you?
I would say the Gadsden City game. That was probably the most special because I saw all the guys after the game, and I mean it was just a special moment just to see how all the fans and everybody in the stands, how excited they were and how much positivity that came from that game, and just to know what we could do the rest of the season.
Coach, I want to ask you this before I turn it over to Howie. This is the kind of things you stay in coaching for a long, long time. And these are the kind of moments that keeps you going when you get to see those kids, because you kind of sort of live life through their eyes. And when you see that light come on and them really are getting it and enjoying themselves, that's what makes it special as a coach.
It is. You want them to, as I talked about with Coach Wells, you want them to take things away from the game. You want them to, learn life lessons, but you also want to see them, learn to handle success and how to, what it takes to achieve success. And I think that this team proved that. They put the extra work in, they put the time in. They had, some of those guys we mentioned a while ago, just like Parker Wilson, he was not a starter till this year, and then he's undersized, and then he played defensive end, and then I went to him back, in the spring, and I said, look, we don't have a starting nose. Would you, is that something you would consider? And he said, Coach, I just want to play. And Levi Crow was the same way. He did not start until he was a senior at outside linebacker, and Fisher Abbott, he didn't start till this year at wide receiver. And so, that happens sometimes, but you got to have those guys. I mean, if those guys would have got frustrated and could have easily and, said last year as a junior, well, I'm not going to get to play. I'm going to do something else because they play other sports. If they would have walked away, then, we would not have had the success we had this year. We needed those young men to play. So when you see, the guys that have just committed, for years to get to that point and then be ready for their opportunity, that those type of things is going to carry them through life and help them be successful, whatever they do, because they put in a lot of time and effort playing scout team, playing special teams, not being rewarded on Friday nights. It was easier for Carter because he started for 3 years, and he was being rewarded on Friday nights. But we had so many guys that contributed to success this past season that had waited for years for this opportunity. And then when they got it, they made the most of it. So that stuff, yes, as a coach, to see those guys do that, to see the guys that are undersized, to see the guys that, other people don't think, a whole lot about until they get out there and perform. And then the other coaches are coming back saying, man, we thought we could run it. We thought we had, we could run at that guy, or we thought we had this and we could do this, but they couldn't because our guys had just worked, prepared, and put themselves in a position, to be successful. So that stuff is really, when you coach, that keeps you going.
Yeah, Dennis, of course, I know you were over strength and conditioning. And, of course, we ain't talked about Coach Elmore. He's put his stamp on this program. Y'all have got an outstanding staff, some great guys that really put these kids first. And so, that's part of the success of this program. And, it seems like Coach Elmore, he is the first one to give credit to everybody else. And we've had him on before, and he's an outstanding coach, an outstanding person. He's bleed out through the rest of the program.
He is a great organizer, a great planner, a time manager, a communicator. Now he's not a big rah-rah guy that, going to go crazy. He's about as even keel as anybody you'll ever see, I think, on the sideline. Very few times throughout the whole season does he get really, really, geared up or excited or mad. He's about as calm, cool, and collective as anybody I've ever been around. But he does. He, like I said, through the preparation, through the time management, game planning, practicing, he gets the most out of practices. Everything is so scheduled and communicates with the kids well, to where there's no mishaps, misunderstanding, and everything just runs really smooth. And he'll tell you, just experience on this staff. We've got all the Fort Payne guys that's been there for years and years, but then there's been some others that's came in, like me and Coach Vincent from outside and in the last few years, and Coach Peters and some other guys that's mixed and mingled. And it's a great mix and fun. When it's easy to go to work is when you get along with everybody and everybody's on the same page. That's a blessing, but that does play out in how the team has success. I believe that. So yes, it starts with Coach Elmore.
Yeah, of course, and one thing I didn't ask you about, faith is a driving force for your family. It means a lot. And, and you can tell that, as an individual you are. Talk about that just a little bit, and then how we can take it over.
I was blessed to be raised by parents that if the doors of the church was open, we were there, but not just there. They were involved, and they still are today. They're, getting up in age, but they're still on the praise team. And then my dad's been the clerk, and mother and dad's been the clerk for nearly 50 years at their home church, and they've served, and they do boys club and girls club and teach Sunday school. They've done all these things. And so, I attribute that to being raised the right way. And so through that, my faith is strong in the Lord, and I try to do the same thing. I try to serve in our church and in the community any way that I can, and stay connected. And, to come to a place to where you have other coaches that are strong in their faith and believers, that creates a great atmosphere too. So that's that's been a blessing. I mean, not this just last year, a year ago we finished up, but we did 12 months of a what we call discipleship group, and with the coaches, and we met once a week and did Bible study and read the same plan and talked about it and prayed together. And so, when you've got a group that does those things together, that's a blessing.
Yeah, and the kids see that too. They see it in your actions, and and they see a lot more than you think they do. Now, Howie, I'll let you take it over.
Coach Carter, we appreciate your time tonight. I'm just going to ask you a couple quick questions. We've had you for an hour already, and you're probably tired of looking and talking to us. So, a couple quick questions. A couple quick questions, Coach. Who would have thought back in the playing days, you and Chad Anderson were highly recruited back in the days, and now both of y'all's sons, Carter and Logan, are being recruited and going on to play at the next level. Would you ever thought that?
Well, we sure hope that, you look at that, and of course he was just a phenomenal player, and as me and him, and I hope Carter stays out of the club of the ACLs because he tore his ACL week 2 of our senior year, and then I tore mine week 7 of our senior year, and so we had to overcome that and go through that adversity. But no, Chad was such a smooth, speed and just glided. He was such a phenomenal player, and I hated to see his career cut short. But watching him over the years, knew that those boys were coming. So it's been fun to watch Logan and see his success. We've seen him on some recruiting trips and seen him in some camps and talked to him at some junior days. And so that's been fun, and so thankful that he's getting the opportunity that he is, and he's well deserved and earned. And so, and then now, Carter and other guys around here that we know well, Luke Gilbert, and, we were cross paths with him several times, and I know his dad well, coached against him, and when he was a player, and coached against him when he was at North Mountain. And so just think the world of them. It's just awesome to see young men in our area get opportunities, and then go take advantage of those opportunities, because for years people around here has complained about don't get looked at, don't get the opportunities of others, and that may be true, in some senses, in some situations, but these guys are now getting noticed and getting opportunities, so thankful for that, and I expect them to go and make the most of the opportunity that they get.
Carter, when you're with your dad and he runs into, like I say, Chad and maybe Logan at some of these camps, do they sit around and reminisce about the playing days, and you and Logan just kind of roll your eyes like, oh gosh, not this again?
They do. I usually get to talking to Logan or some of the other guys, but sometimes I do hear them talking about back in the day, playing football and stuff. But
so I do have a hard time remembering some of it now. I don't know if it was the hits or what, but some people start telling me, all the things that happened done. I'm like, okay, that sounds great, but I don't remember all of it.
Carter, you're heading over to UNA. If they gave you an opportunity, what number would you want to wear while you're over there?
I'd love to wear 0. I know they already have a number 0, but I'd also love to wear 82. That was what I wore my freshman and sophomore year. So if that number's still open, I'd love to wear that.
Do you know who you're going to be roommating with over at UNA?
I'll be rooming with Brent and Oliver, the receiver that I played with this year. So that'd be good to stay with somebody that I know. And yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about. I know there's quite a few of them. There's Brandon, Oliver. There's you. There's Hughes. There's Vonador. There's. I know there's a couple more, but who else is going to play college football?
Lucas Talent, he is going to Huntington College to play, and then That's it. Other than Dax and Connor.
So there's 5 from Fort Payne going. Coach, you ever had a team to have 5 players to move on to the next level?
No, I've not been a part of a team, that many. I think we had 3 a couple years here at Fort Payne, and then but I think that was the most, that went on to play off of one team. So
That's good. Carter. It's good you're going to UNA, a couple-hour drive from here. The family can go and watch you play at the home games, and that's got to be reassuring. And plus, having not just a teammate, but a fellow classmate sharing a room with you, that's got to help out as well.
Yes, sir. I think it will, just to be comfortable over there and get used to it and everything. That'd be very helpful to be with somebody that I know and that I'm good friends with.
What are you looking forward to the most when you get to UNA?
Just getting with all my new teammates and just making new relationships, and I mean just learn everything I can about college and what I'm going to do in the future.
Speaking of future, what is your future plans as far as education wise?
I'm kind of undecided right now. I've always said like something about business or physical therapy, something like that, but right now I'm undecided.
Stacy Smith made a comment earlier, said excited to see Carter play at UNA. And
his son is actually has just
Hey.
finished up his freshman year over there, and he's a student coach. He's helping. He actually came on the visit the other day. So super people. I know Phil knows them well, but we'd met them. I'd met them, several times over the years, but then run into them at one of the games when he was looking at UNA, and so that's another familiar face. And of course, Coach Ellis's son is also the equipment manager over there. So we know him. So we've got several connections from here local that's part of that program.
Coach, how does it make you feel knowing that you've got a lot of people that's at Florence over there to kind of help Carter out when he first moves over there?
Yes, that's always good to have some connections and know people. And as he said, he mentioned Coach Caraboa. Coach Caraboa is the defensive coordinator and just done a phenomenal job of communicating with us, of being upfront, and honest and staying in touch. And so, really feel good about that relationship. And Phil had asked about, the coaches or what drew you to, and we went over there on a visit on junior day. They brought all of the recruits in and parents, and he went over his, philosophy and principles that they live by. Coach Dearman did, and spent probably about 25 minutes talking to us. And I was sold that day. I enjoyed, we'd enjoyed the camps. We'd enjoyed getting to know Coach Caraboa, and thought that it was a good atmosphere when we would go, and high energy, the coaches and practice and different stuff. But when we sat down that day and listened to him speak, we were sold. And he said some stuff in that meeting that really challenged me as a coach, and I wished I would have heard it, when I started coaching. But one of his principles was that they shout praise and they whisper criticism. And I knew that their practices were different and watched them, but they lived by that. And so he was. He just done a lot to reassure that was the right place and the right fit for us. He talked about his faith. It's not a Christian college, but they do have, Bible studies and different stuff that they kind of organize with the players. And so, that all of those things put together, it's just been a perfect fit for Carter. And for us, he's attended the Church of Highlands for the last few years. There's a Church of the Highlands campus over there in Florence that, he'll be able to transition to, and on that side of it. So all of that stuff, the Lord's got a plan, and his plan is good. And it's just been, it's just felt like the right fit from the start.
That's, that's awesome. Carter, let's get you relaxed a little bit. Seem like you're a little bit uptight, a little bit nervous. So let's get to know Carter just a little bit before we let you go. Y'all been with us a little over an hour now, and I'll get you out as soon as possible. I'm not going to say what one of your teammates said on here because it wasn't bad. It just every time every time I think about it, it gets me cracked up. But Connor Hughes, I asked him about pregame superstitions or anything like that, and every response I wasn't expecting, and it cracks me up. But do you have anything superstitions or rituals you got to do before you take the field?
I usually pray in my locker before I go out after warm ups, and that's really the only thing that I can think of that I do before every game. Sometimes it changes, but I mean that's really the main thing.
Uh, get to know you a little bit more on a personal side. Music wise, what music do you enjoy listening to?
I listen mostly to country music and
Who's your,
and
who's
Christian
your
music.
favorite artist,
Um,
or maybe favorite song?
I like Zach Top and maybe some Zach Bryan. So
Being an hour away from your lady friend there, when she goes to Hustle, you're going to be in Florence. That's got to be a big plus there. So when y'all are going out on a date, where do you take her to eat at?
it's usually a Mexican restaurant. We both really like Mexican restaurants like Lamone's or Mexicita or something like that, or maybe Santa Fe every once in a while. But that's really the main.
What's your favorite Mexican dish?
It's something called the Corey. It's just a big burrito with like different kind of meats, and it's got peppers and onions in it, and just like a whole bunch of cheese dip on it. So that's that's probably my favorite.
Teacher wise at Fort Payne, who's your favorite teacher?
Um, it's probably one of my coaches. Is probably Coach Peters. He really makes class fun, and we do like a trivia game about every week that he just likes to make class fun, and I feel like I've learned a lot in that class.
I'm going to ask you your favorite subject, but I would assume that's your favorite subject as well. But I don't know. What's your favorite subject? I shouldn't assume. We know what happens when you assume. Carter,
Well,
so your favorite subject?
I've always been like better at math than other subjects, so probably math. I really enjoyed history this year just because of like Coach Peters and how he teaches that class.
So you getting ready to graduate? Are you in coasting mode now, or do you still have a few classes you got to? Coach is
Well,
already laughing and shaking his head. Yeah, but Carter, do you have a few more classes you got to take before graduation, or are you just kind of coasting to the finish line?
I'm kind of just coasting. I've got 2 more days of class, and it's it's finals week, but I'm exempt from finals, so I don't really have to do anything else. So I'm pretty much done.
So, something Phil normally brings up, and I'm surprised that he didn't bring it up today, is football season is the first sport or the first activity that starts up the school year, and it kind of sets the tone for the whole year. Y'all had that great run in the playoffs, and then it seemed like it carried over to basketball, and we know what the baseball team did this year, the soccer team, the volleyball. I mean, it was just nonstop playoffs, playoffs, playoffs. How does that make you feel knowing that you kind of got the sports activities jump started this year?
Uh, that just makes me happy to see all the other sports carrying on like what we started and stuff, and how everybody just are carried on to their team, like maybe that played football and carried that on to their next sport and just continued.
Good deal, guys. We appreciate your time. We've kept you way longer than we were meaning to, and we apologize for that. But we'd love to have y'all on again, Carter. Once you get settled in over at UNA, we'd love to have you back on and let
Yes,
us
sir.
know how it's going. You can be our UNA insider. Tyler Dalton's the Ider insider. You can be the UNA insider. How's that?
Yes, sir. Sounds good.
Thank you, man. We appreciate it. We've been it's been our pleasure to be a part of this.
And before we get going, something we always do, we want y'all to give a shout out to anybody about anything that you want, as many as you want to. Uh, Look like Coach is already fired up about the shout outs.
I'm
He's
not.
already laughing about it. So we're gonna save his for last. Carter, go ahead and start with the shout outs.
I like to shout out Cooper Garrett and Dax Marnor, and Connor Hughes.
You
Yeah.
better
I'm gonna
hold
put
on, hold
out.
on,
I'll
hold on,
make it
hold on,
easy.
hold on, coach. Hold on, coach.
No, sorry.
Carter's got one more. I think he needs to shout out. One lady friend. He better shout out, or he might get in trouble.
He said
Uh,
Cooper
yeah,
first.
Cooper.
yeah,
He
Cooper
did
Gale.
Cooper.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
That's
Hey,
that's the first one.
okay, you're good,
Yeah.
Larry. Hey,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
learning very good. You're learning very quick. There you go.
Yeah,
I'm
he's
sorry,
he's
coach. Go ahead.
smart.
Oh, yeah.
No, so yeah, you put it's just like the sports bank, but you always have to recognize your wife and kids, right? So shout out to my wife Shannon for her support, and to Kirby. The funny thing that we didn't share a while ago is Kirby. She's so into football. She's still tore up about this group graduating, about Carter being done, about so many things that you go in there at night. She's watching some of the old games. She was watching Gaston City last week when I went there. She was supposed to be in bed, and she was watching the Gaston City game. So she loves it. She's been a true football coach's daughter that's just all in. So shout out to her for that, her support, and all of the Fort Payne Wildcats.
Does she ever give you any advice as far as what you need to do coaching wise?
Yeah, she started giving me advice. I think she was about 3 years old. I was giving her about 3 or 4. She was probably like 4 or 5. I don't know. She don't remember. But anyways, I was getting her ready for bed, and she gave me the advice. She said, "Why do you always run where the people are? Why don't you run to the side where there's nobody at?" And I said, "That's a great idea." I mean, that is awesome. So she's been giving me advice for a long time on coaching.
Awesome. That's great. And Miss Cooper, I'm sorry. I did not hear the first name that Carter said, so I apologize for that. But um, guys, thanks for joining us.
Thank
Like I said,
you.
Yes,
we'd
sir.
love to
Thank
have
you.
y'all back on again. So for our guests, Brent and Carter Tinker, for Phil Harris, I'm the Howard Cheney. This is Beyond the Booth. Good night and God bless everybody.
Bless not.